Industries. Dave Fetz, Dave is a solution consultant for Infor, aligning his 10 years of experience working with PDM and PLM solutions now to the Infor PLM Discrete sales team. Over the past 20 years, Dave's worked with various CAD technologies within the discrete manufacturing industry as a designer and engineer. So without further delay, here's Dave, and we're going to go through PLM this morning.
Well, thank you, Bobby. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate everybody for attending today. Just real quick, some of the things I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through a short PowerPoint, just kind of setting up PLM, or Product Lifecycle Management, what it is, what we're really solving across multiple industries today. And from there, we're going to move into just a product demonstration, just kind of high-level look at the product, some of the basic functionality that the product will provide, and really the importance of its integration into SyteLine and really providing a complete solution for a business that can match and add value to every group or role within inside of a company. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. Again, my agenda gets kind of going through some manufacturing pressures, a little background on PLM, again, the problems we're solving, and really kind of getting into the software. And then we will open it up for some live Q&A at the end. If there's something that can't be answered today, we can definitely table that and direct it to the right person along the way. So if we think about discrete and we think about some of the manufacturing pressures that exist today, you're probably well aware of them. Living in the industries today, and really comes down to thinking about operations at a high level. Obviously we want to achieve lower costs of manufacturing. We may be able to outsource a contract manufacturing. We really need to be able to understand really the passing of information and the history of that information when we're provided in those activities. On the corporate level, obviously, we've got to talk about profit growth and revenue growth along the way as we're introducing our products to market faster, and that really comes down to our customers themselves. Of course, they're demanding lower prices, higher quality, again, that faster delivery time. And of course, being able to work in multiple industries, we also need to be able to provide some solutions for some of the compliances that we see out there in the industries. If we're dealing with RoHS or REACH or even 21 CFR, ITAR, all those different compliances, is we need a way to manage that information, be it at a security level or being able to follow it through one of those different practices. If we think about like an APQP or a PPAP process, being able to really stay in tune with that and make sure we're following it step by step along the way. And really, how can we be more competitive in all these areas? It really comes down to product accuracy, standardization throughout the organization, throughout the company itself. And those two really will add up to, be able to get us to market faster, get our projects done a little bit quicker, and most of the time freeing up extra time to really add in that extra quality that is so needed for us to gain market share. There's a lot of PDM and PLM type of solutions out there in the market today, and there's really some major reasons why they don't work. And really it comes down to is that they're not connected, they're not integrated into the business system of a company itself. And what that would look like today is, we have our ERP solution, we have our SyteLine solution, and that can handle a lot of marketing, sales activity, can handle some of the quality information, but it really leaves engineering out there. Without that direct connection to SyteLine itself, all we're doing is creating an island of disparate information. Typically what we find out there from third parties or even the CAD vendors is it's a data dump from engineering into SyteLine itself. And really, we know with the data dump that information is really out of sync as soon as we have that data dump out there. Or even if we're entering that information manually, the potential errors that can happen. And again, not having that live connection, that information is out of sync automatically with the rest of the organization. There are some different solutions that are out there and provided in the industry today. And one of the top ones that I've seen and I've worked with in my past history is the idea of just a solution coming from the CAD vendors. The CAD vendors provide a product data management solution to go through and revision control and our history and some of the typical PDM functionality we find, where used properties, so I can see where an item might be living across multiple assemblies or projects, etc. But where they fall short typically is that ERP, that SyteLine integration, which is so important. Now our product is going to provide all that typical PDM functionality that you would see, but you're also going to see that we're not only integrated into the CAD system, but we're also fully integrated into the SyteLine solution. So that first solution really does become a little bit of an IT nightmare at the same time, just making sure on when we're keeping up with revision levels of our software itself, that can be troublesome alone. Another option that's out there is really just a third party. It's not coming from Infor, and it's not coming from the CAD vendor. It's just a third party solution out there, and really that's not a very viable solution either. Much like the CAD solution, the CAD vendor solution, it leaves a little bit to be desired. It's definitely a lot of maintenance for IT. Again, if we're upgrading our CAD or if we're upgrading our SyteLine, who's going to heal those links of that custom integration that was probably built? So again, more of a financial nightmare and just a maintenance nightmare along the way. And then we can think about, just going straight CAD to ERP, and a lot of companies do it today, a very manual process. Again, we're getting out of sync very quickly and hard to maintain, and most of all, that it is a manual process. With Infor, we're going to provide a PLM solution. So that PLM solution will include all that PDM functionality that our engineers and designers need, be it mechanical CAD or electrical CAD, because we have that integration into the CAD environment. So we're living inside of the CAD environment. We're keeping the designers, engineers focused on the task and the software they're using. And of course, we have that ERP integration. So now we can communicate all this important information really just, as a standardized approach for the business itself. So really there should be no compromise when we think about controlling our data and also integrating into the SyteLine environment. When we think about Infor PLM, we really think about the areas of the business we're touching and some of the things we can help provide. And it really comes down to the idea of we're going to provide the collaboration needed for the business. We're going to help you with your regulatory compliances. We're going to reduce your product cost along the way by being able to understand our processes, follow our processes, and make sure we're adhering to those processes each step along the way. And of course, eventually we're going to, all this is going to turn into better product quality, saving us time in our initial design phases to add that extra quality in. So a little bit of background about PLM. Infor has been in the PLM business for a long time, about 25 years. They did develop the first ever visual product data management system that was released to the market. So a long history of PLM was inside of Infor, and PDM was inside of Infor. And again, just providing those single BOM solutions for 18 years. And obviously, over this time, we've matured our product along the way to add the functionality that our customers are asking for. Some of the different industries that we work in, obviously being the automotive, the high-tech, industrial, aerospace, defense, medical, and so on, are industries that people are using our products today, using them with our SyteLine product, and even Infor's other offerings on the ERP side. So really, again, a solution that can provide answers to all these different industries. 4 key differentiators for our product itself that are out there. Just kind of the top ones off the top of my head, and it really comes down to product lifecycle intelligence. And that's a lot more than just a PDM solution. If we think about a PDM solution, typically found in an engineering department, but it ends there. Again, it doesn't reach out to the rest of the business like a PLM system will provide. So it's going to provide all the history of our files, be it any type of electronic file format, and it's going to allow us to capture those, the instances, the revisions of those, and again, the full history of those along the way. Our ERP integration, that integration in the SyteLine being so very, very important. A couple different touch points we'll talk about later inside of the demonstration of the importance of those along the way. Being CAD neutral, so many companies out there today have either gone through mergers, acquisitions, or partnered with somebody, or just customer demanding that a project or a design is done in a certain format. So our product is CAD neutral on the mechanical side and electrical side. If we think about mechanical, we think about CATIA, NX, Autodesk Inventor, SolidWorks, SolidEdge, and so on. I could keep naming them. But again, it's one single PLM solution that will go ahead and integrate into all those different platforms, giving a single tool, again, standardizing for a company on a tool that's going to fit their business needs. And again, it comes down to enterprise collaboration. You know, a system doesn't have much value if it's not easy to use, easy to communicate with others inside of the organization that may need the latest and greatest information housed somewhere in a database or a vault type environment. So if we think about this PLM as we start walking through this a little bit, you know, Infor really looks at their PLM solution and understands that it really needs to have ERP as its backbone. That becomes so very important for really understanding the life cycle of your files, managing your files, and having a solution that fits the rest of the business. Again, without that critical synced information with SyteLine, it really, all we're doing is really collecting a bunch of information out there in a disparate island. It's not synced, and more than likely still a manual process. So we're going to solve that with the Infor PLM. What can Infor PLM really manage for us? We talk a lot about our engineering and our designers and all the data they're producing, the revision control, and even workflows with that, but we need to think about PLM can be utilized by the entire enterprise. It really comes down to, you know, if we think about product literature, we think about work instructions, testing procedures, quality documents, and really, as I mentioned, any electronic file format out there, it's a tool that can be really used by the enterprise. Anybody, any role, any division can definitely see value in utilizing PLM, you know, within their role. Typically, what we're solving for companies, we see a lot of companies that are kind of built up this way. It's really the idea that if we think about engineering and all the data they need to share with others, if they need to share with manufacturing, procurement, sales, service, marketing along the way, how do they share that information today? A lot of times we see, you know, file folders living inside of a server somewhere, and we email some information or even walk that information over to somebody. But as soon as we hand off that information, once again, we're out of sync. We have a broken link there because it is more of a manual process, and not everybody's looking at the latest and greatest revisions along the way in doing that. Also, how are we notifying these other areas, these other groups inside of the company of potential changes to our items? Be it, again, if it's testing procedures, quality documents, or engineering data, how are we notifying? You know, is it a phone call? Is it an email? And how are we tracking that information? Again, we really need to stay connected. And if we think about staying connected, we really think about securing really that single version of truth, again, for the enterprise. So everybody who wants to participate in utilizing PLM will have a single database to store their data, their documents, revision control them, be part of workflows and business processes and approvals, and really just track our data. And what's nice about this is that we can notify people electronically. We can do it by email. We can do it by task lists living inside of PLM. And the nice thing about that is we're recording each one of those steps, so we have full history of that interaction. Now we don't have to worry about people accessing data that isn't relevant, that isn't the latest and greatest revision. Infor PLM is going to solve that for us. Well, I think one of the most important things that we solve for any business that's considering a PDM or PLM type of solution is really the idea of, we think about all that information that is created in our CAD environment, our engineering, our designers, our detailing, and all that data that does need to reside inside of SyteLine. Well, today when we think about it and we see it a lot is the idea that that data today, that item master, that item information, it's a manual process of inputs and updates into the SyteLine environment. Again, as soon as we hear the word manual, we think of potential for error, and we think really, again, it's more of a data dump, right? We're out of sync very quickly, really, as soon as we enter that information. So what we do solve that with is we solve that with PLM. So PLM not only integrates into the CAD environment, but it also fully integrates into the SyteLine environment. Now we can pass all that critical information that we determine is important throughout the systems. With the CAD integration itself, we understand the metadata, the properties or attributes live inside of your models and your drawings. And of course, we capture that inside of PLM. We can even write that information from PLM back into our CAD environment. So very bi-directional relationship between just CAD and PLM. Now once we have that information inside of PLM and we're stored it, we're revision controlling it, and following the history of it, we can also automatically send that item master, that bill of material, into the ERP solution, into the SyteLine environment. Now we've removed that manual process along the way, and we know that it's all good, released, healthy data moving into SyteLine itself. Another great benefit is the idea of really, again, having a bi-directional relationship all the way through one integrated solution. So now we're going to be able to take a look at cost, maybe inventory, and all that important information that we need as designers as we're going through and creating our designs, working on our projects. And again, we can share that information all the way back into the CAD environment itself. So one fully integrated solution. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm really going to move into, what's the product look like? What can PLM do for us? I'm going to touch on a couple different areas. I'm going to introduce you to PLM, look at the user interface itself. We're going to talk at a very high level about just managing documents within inside of PLM, some of the easy functionality to do that. We're going to take a look at the CAD integration, that item master creation, controlling the bill of materials themselves, a quick look at workflow, and again, I think that most important look really at that SyteLine integration and the different touch points we can have with that, and again, the value that comes with that along the way. So the first area I'm going to introduce you to is just PLM. If you've seen our product in the past, we have a brand new look to it that we're very proud of. As I mentioned, even though we've been doing this for about 25 years, it's all about keeping our product up to date, listening to our customers, and adding the functionality that they need. So to do this, I'm going to need to go over to my demonstration environment. And if we think about PLM, and here is kind of more of a PLM warm-up, a little light stretching here for us today. We're going to think about the area I have up right now is called our work area. Under each one of those is a different work pane. So I can bring up information extremely easy. What's unique about this is the idea we can personalize it to our role, the information I may need to see coming from our PLM solution. What's that data living inside of that database, that vault of information, that single source of truth? It's easy access here for us, and many times just a right-click away. What I have up on the screen is I have a look at that database. I have all my items that are living in the database up here on the upper left-hand side. So I can easily go through and search for that information. I even have my documents living inside of the system. So again, if I'm worried about quality or anything else inside of the company, I can have a nice repository to store all of my critical documents, revision control them, and so on. On the upper right-hand side here, I have more of just an item master, a bill of material that came from the CAD environment engineering, and just brought it in and published it to PLM itself, where it generated all the item master information for me. That's going to need to reside inside of SyteLine. So we can go through and automatically assign your item numbering information to any scheme you may have. If it's per item type or document type or even project, we can change that scheme for you along the way. And then again, just a simple thumbnail preview. Anytime I'm working with PLM and I want to see extra information, or even I want to see less information, again, we can personalize the environment. If I want to look at costing at maybe some of these fasteners I have up here, again, a simple right-click away just to bring up a costing window. I can go ahead and close my document window here. Now what I just need to do is maybe I need to look at a couple different variations, some simple drag and drop functionality to take a quick look at that costing information. Again, maybe now I need to choose something inside of this design to go ahead and move forward with. So again, just easy ways to access information inside of PLM. As I mentioned, personalization becomes very important. So users may need to see different aspects of information due to their role inside of the company. So we can always easily create a brand new work area. We can also save out these work areas as our favorites or templates. So we're not recreating all the time. We have that available to us under our work area manager. Our work area manager can list all those favorites or templates living inside of the system. Again, if we want to standardize across the business, here's a great area to do it. Everybody can have the same look or feel as they needed to complete their roles inside of the company. Or we can, personalize these, build them up as needed, for the use that we have. And again, it's just simple drag and drop functionality to build these different types of work area environments. So here I just created an area that I'm going to be utilizing next for just a documentation of PLM. Okay. So the next area I want to talk to is just a little bit about document control. And this is really thinking about the idea we have PLM up and running, it's fully implemented, and I need to add documentation to it, be it, parts, material specifications, you name it, any electronic file format, again, we can manage inside of PLM. We're fully integrated into the Microsoft Office product, so we can do our check-in, check-out, revisions, and so on with those. But as we add our information in the PLM, be it drag or drop or, publishing from Microsoft Word or a CAD environment, we have the ability to define attributes of those files or those documents living inside of the system. Here we could flag files for, ITAR, AP, QT, any of those different processes or regulatory things that we need to deal with on a daily basis. We can actually highlight those different things inside of the attributes of those files. And that's a nice visual cue, and also we can utilize PLM to help us filter out documents of different types for us in the future. Also, we can, set up mandatory fields so people have to fill out information as they're adding, this documentation to the PLM database itself. So again, very user-friendly. You're going to have the ability to personalize the critical information that's important to your business when defining these attributes. So as we think about, this documentation itself, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this a little bit. And we think about documentation, we think about, well, how do we get data into PLM? One way of doing it, again, it couldn't be any simpler. And again, it's just simple drag and drop. Bring that information into PLM, publish that information in the PLM. In this case, maybe it's some type of material spec that I'm bringing into the system, so I'm going to fill out the description. I have some auto numbering control going on and revisioning schemes, and I can just, again, publish that information into the PLM database. If I need to see extra data about this document, really what makes up this document, again, that simple right-click away, and now we can see the related files. I brought in that Word document from my desktop. Now that Word document is living inside the system. Oh, and by the way, I have PLM automatically generating PDF files for me also. So PLM can, do a lot of different things for us, and PDF generation is just one of them. If we're thinking about the CAD environment, the engineering and designers, they may need some neutral file formats, be it a DXF file in the 2D world, if they need a step file, IGES file, a SAT file in the 3D world to maybe exchange that information with manufacturing. PLM can automatically generate those for us along the way. If I had some other critical information that was important and needed to really have a relationship with these other documents, we had our material spec brought in here, but maybe there was some testing information that went along with it or some verifications that went along with it. Again, we can just drag that information into the environment and publish it inside of the environment itself. So we can go ahead, we can save that information along the way as we go through, we look at it living inside of PLM. There we go. So I can go ahead and bring in that additional information. So now anytime anyone were to bring up this document ID or looking for a specific document material spec, they would see all the related information, be it the Word document, the PDF file, maybe the PowerPoint, maybe it's JPEG images, TIFF images, and so on. We can go ahead and build relationships with all that information. And as you saw me drag and drop into this environment, if I needed to tie any of this information to item data, again, just simple drag and drop to make those connections happen. Okay? So the next area we're going to talk about, really I'm going to combine the next two. And now we start focusing in more on engineering, the design processes, workflow capabilities, and really integration into the business system being SyteLine. And the first two areas we're going to talk about is really just CAD integration, bill of material control, or if we would like to refer to it as the item master. We can go through, again, as I mentioned, that with inside of the CAD integration, this happens to be SolidWorks, but again, all the major CAD systems, mechanical and electrical, we fully integrate into. And with that integration, you're going to see us living inside of the CAD user interface with all the typical functionality an end user would need. Their check-in, check-out capabilities, being able to kick off workflows or business processes, being able to take ownership of files when working on the same project with a group of others, searching information, and so on. All that's going to live inside of the CAD environment for those end users, really keeping them focused on the task at hand. What also happens with that is the idea of really controlling that information before we send it to SyteLine, and that's the creation, or I should say the automatic creation of the item master, understanding that data from the CAD itself, bringing it into PLM, creating and matching up our item information to those CAD files themselves, again, so we can eventually deliver into the SyteLine environment. So I'm going to combine these two in the next portion of the demonstration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up one of my favorites here, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and hit my home there. But if we think about, a CAD designer, an engineer, and they come in the morning, they start going ahead and doing some fantastic modeling inside of their environment, creating drawings and so on. What they're doing really is they're creating all those individual models, sub-assemblies, all that important information, and typically applying attributes, properties to those individual models to fill out a bill of material. Well, a couple things need to happen for us. Inside of PLM, of course, is opening that information. Again, as I mentioned, doing our check-in, check-outs of that data, taking ownership of files if needed, kicking off those business processes. If we need to have an engineering change or someone to approve this design, we can go ahead and launch that and track that process for us. The searching capabilities, any of the other typical functionality we would need to really communicate with PDM or PLM type of solutions that are out there today. With this design, if I want to go through and I want to take this information and I want to publish it to PLM, again, it's very simple. I can go through, I can do a save and unlock of that information to PLM. A couple things are happening for us. One, it's generating that item master for us. So it's going through, making sure there's no duplication of item numbers. It's creating any PDF files or any other neutral file formats that I would like the system to create. And again, it's really assembling that metadata from the CAD environment into that item master for us inside of PLM. So it's going through that process just as it would normally in CAD as if you did a save to a file folder on your server. With that being said, what it's done for us, again, is it's gone through our environment and it's created our item master. So I'm just going to go ahead and find it real quick here. So I'm going to find my file. I'm going to take a look at the file, the latest and greatest, and I'm going to bring up that item master, that bill of material. Again, that same structure we saw in the CAD environment with the sub-assembly and everything has been completely captured for us, and in any metadata we have mapped between PLM and the CAD solution has been captured for us. And in this case, I had my item information match my CAD file information. But in many cases, you can also have this create item information that may be completely different that needs to live inside of ERP, still, of course, having that relationship back to the CAD file. If we think about this bill of material control, we think about consumables out there. A lot of times when I was even a designer, we didn't go through and we didn't add in all of our fasteners and washers, and we didn't define paint and grease and things like that inside of our CAD environment because we wanted to keep our files healthy and light, for easy to work on. So we have this item master here, that bill of material. We can add information to it. If we need to add fasteners, do we want them added to the top level assembly, the sub-assembly of this design? You pick and choose where it makes sense to add that information. So now we can go through, we can manipulate the bill of material, we can change quantities, we can change descriptive information. Again, we can push that information back into the CAD models, And of course, we can, again, extend this information into the SyteLine environment. So anything we want to do in this case with the item master is there for us. Again, that PDM type of functionality we hear about, and it's so important, a simple right-click away. If we're looking at, where used properties, am I using this assembly in any other designs? If I were going to make a change to this, I could actually see every design it was used in and what designs I could affect by making a change. So where used becomes extremely important. Another very important one is being able to take this design structure here and be able to go through and copy it, reuse it. So very easy to do, a simple right-click away to kick off a new design, maybe a new iteration from this one. Again, anything we'd like to see, it is that simple right-click away for any end user. So as we think about kind of moving on in the process, what we've done so far is we started off in the CAD, we created a model, we published that information to PLM, our item master was generated, we tweaked that bill of material a little bit. So now it really comes down to the idea of thinking about just workflows inside of the company. And what PLM can provide is workflow solutions. And this is really just matching up to typical business processes that a company may have, be it a new product introduction, an approval process, some type of engineering change notification or change order. Really, any process you have inside of the company, we can match workflows to be as complex as you would like or as simple as you would like them to be at the same time. I have a variety of customers out there today that have a single-step workflow just so as they publish information to PLM, there's an auto signature applied to the file and it's automatically put into a release status. So when we think about automation inside of our workflows, there's a couple different ways it varies. Automation, of course, is notification, email-driven, task list-driven inside of PLM, communication with other business systems, communication with SyteLine or other systems we may have inside of the company, even just automation inside of our designs. If we have a design that's maybe in an unreleased state and it goes through an approval process, the system can automatically put it into a release status. If we'd like it to automatically send to SyteLine, we can also have it do that at the same time. So a very powerful solution. That solution becomes extremely powerful when we think of time of change and being able to notify SyteLine of potential change of an item. So now someone in SyteLine could actually go through, look up a job number, look up a purchase order, and really see what that change is going to affect. And the important piece about that is we can notify SyteLine immediately throughout workflow. We're not waiting 2 hours, 2 days, to really notify someone of that potential change and really eliminate some of the ramifications of potentially manufacturing to a wrong release level or supplying someone the wrong data. So as we think about workflow a little bit, we'll just take this example I had from the CAD environment. We've gone through, we went through our modeling exercises, we manipulated our bill of material a little bit. Right now we're currently in an undefined state except for that library component I added in. So I need someone to approve this design. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to utilize a very simple workflow. I'm going to go into my items themselves and I'm going to select really just an option to kick off the workflow itself. As I mentioned, PLM can be utilized by anybody inside of the company. So we may have multiple business process types or categories inside of the company. We'll help you define them to match your needs, and of course you can define them also. So if it's an approval process or an engineering notification, whatever it may be, we can go through and utilize that. Under each one of those categories, we can then create templates, our favorites, right? If we think about an approval process, quality is going to have a different workflow because it needs to talk to different people for approval than, let's say, engineering. So everybody can have their own template defined for their role. So in this case, I'm going to just add something, and then I'm going to just give it a short description. So I'm just looking for a reprove or maybe a reject, of the design. That's what I'm looking for, and then of course that we would want them to add any additional comments or items to it, and I'm going to go ahead and simply dispatch that out. So a couple things have happened behind the scenes. You know, the email notifications have gone out, and inside of PLM, what's happened for us, and again, I'm just going to personalize my environment a little bit here, that inside of PLM, anybody who logs into the system will have their own task list living inside of the system. So here's a great look at everything, every task, every workflow that is assigned to me as the end user. I better get busy because I have quite a few of them out here. We can define individual steps inside of those workflows and so on, as we see on the right-hand side here. But as I get this notification, as I get this alert, I need to react to it. So I need to do a little bit of investigation. Maybe it's just a simple, again, that right click away. What's this workflow? What am I being involved in? I can actually visually see the workflow. It'll be highlighted in what step it's in. So easy tracking capabilities as we're going through these different processes. Well, with this workflow, once there's an approval, the system's going to take over and take that undefined information and put into a release status for me and add the revision to the document itself. And then some notifications are going to go out at the same time. Well, if I want to dig a little deeper, well, what if I want to say, you know, well, what is this item? What's it made of? What's the structure look like for this item? You know, what is it? So I need to do a little deeper investigation of that information. So now I can actually bring out that item up. I see it's a cylinder assembly. In this case, you know what, I want to take one more deeper look. Maybe I want to see if it's structured. Again, this is just information that's just a right click away. We can get as deep as we would like or keep it as simple as we would like, and that's so very important. Now I see that structure, I can kind of understand it, but I'm probably a manager. I don't use CAD all day long. I don't even know how to turn on a CAD system. So with our PLM solution, what we're going to provide is an enterprise viewing tool. And this allows us to look at about 250 different electronic file formats. We don't need to pull CAD licenses for CAD data. It can do, you know, all the different CAD data, the drawings, the 3D models, PDF files, 3D PDFs, TIFFs, images, you name it, Word documents and such. That again, it's about 250 different electronic file formats that the enterprise viewer will go through and allow us to view these files without having to use licenses from other applications. The viewer also has a lot of powerful functionality that comes along with it. You know, your typical red line markups and so on that we would need to go ahead and collaborate maybe back and forth on a design. If I'm in the manufacturing world, maybe someone forgot a dimension on a drawing or even a 3D model, I'm not quite sure. I can go through and I can actually do some investigation here. I can actually add some section cuts in here. I could actually take some dimensional information. Everything's there for me to quickly, you know, get to the problem, continue with my job and my role, and I can also communicate it at the same time, again, either by red line markups or, you know, adding information to the workflow process along the way. You know, some other, you know, pretty important tools in here is the idea of being able to exploded views of assemblies. Maybe we're creating work instructions and things like that. We can go ahead and create those exploded views. And also some other analysis. One of my favorites is the compare. Being able to take a revision A to a revision B, bring them up on the same screen, and have the system highlight the changes between those, be it a Word document, a drawing package, be it 3D models, the system will do that compare functionality for us. So that was a little bit on the enterprise viewer. Kind of getting back to my workflow here is, all right, I've gone through, I've done my investigation. I have some different options here. I could add additional information to the workflow itself. Maybe I found a testing procedure, a material specification that would that needs to be attached to it. We can go ahead and do that. Or we can go through and approve or reject the item itself. Very easy to do. A rejection could take us one step back inside of the workflow, or we can pick and choose where it makes sense throughout this rejection. Where should it be routed to in the workflow? So you have a lot of those different options available. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and approve the item, and I'm going to approve the individual task of that workflow. So I'll go to the task operations, and I'll approve that, and we saw it come off my list here. So with that, you know, we've gone through the design itself. I'll go to my home page here, and now we're going to take a look back at that engineering data. So in this case, I'll probably have to bring up that item master again, because what the system did for us, again, is it took us through
and it's going to put us into that release status, and it's done that. The automation happened, it's put all of our files into a release status, and at this point, with that approval, again, I could have used workflow to send this information over to SyteLine, or there's other ways of going about it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about workflow there. One other note on workflow, again, is the idea that, you know, any company who brings PLM from Infor into their organization, we will, of course, provide the training needed, the administrative training needed that is so very important, where you don't need to contact Infor, you don't need to contact the VAR that's you know, supporting you. You're going to be in full control. If you want to manipulate your workflows, create new ones, you'll have the knowledge and you'll have the capabilities to do that. Now, of course, I think one of my favorite pieces is that integration into SyteLine, and really, you know, passing that information, removing, you know, the manual effort that's needed, the communication of all that critical data that needs to be living inside of SyteLine for us as a company. So as we think about PLM real quick, we put our item master that was captured for us, in this case by the CAD environment. We can also build these up. We don't necessarily need CAD to create an item master. If we already have all of our items created inside of PLM, we can just drag and drop and build our own item master and create new items at any given time. But with this release process, since I did not use workflow in this case to pass the information to SyteLine, again, just that simple right-click away, and we're going to go ahead and send that over to ERP. In this case, you know, with that, you may have SyteLine serving multiple companies, so you could pick and choose what company this information needs to go to. Simply hit or select Add and send that information over to ERP. Again, with this data is the full history of the data. So anytime we want to see, you know, anything related to this data, if it's revision cycles, if it's how many times was it released to SyteLine, were there any related business processes? Again, just a simple right-click away to any of that information that we would need to see inside the company. It's the last one we did. Now on the SyteLine side, of course, we pass that information over to ERP, and in this case, we'll go ahead and bring up SyteLine. So now I need to go find my information. So I'll go ahead and just do a simple search on it. I didn't remember the entire file name there, but I know it's going to be NCA something. So I'll go ahead, take a look at this information, and again, just a simple double click. So as one of the first touch points with, obviously, SyteLine, again, is that the passing of that item master information into the environment. So this came directly from our PLM solution. Obviously, the sub-assembly that was there, that whole structure came across for us. You know, again, a very automated process, took out all that manual input as needed. Another very important touch point for us inside of SyteLine is not only passing this information over in an item type of configuration, but what about the supporting documentation that goes along with it? Are there PDF files that are needed? Does someone need to actually see what this information looks like? So now if you're utilizing DocTrack inside of SyteLine, DocTrack would now be looking at the PLM database. So that becomes important because now we know that the extra documentation coming along with this item information is being controlled by PLM. We know it's the latest and greatest, and we can go ahead and browse out to that information for this given item. Again, if we need to view it inside of SyteLine, go ahead, take a look at the PDF file, maybe bring up the 3D model, the drawings, etc. Again, just a very nice touch point, and of course it's a controlled touch point. It's the latest and greatest information coming from the PLM solution itself. If we expand a little bit more on touch points with the ERP, of course, another area can be the ECN, or the Engineering Change Notification. It can be one of the workflows produced from PLM notifying SyteLine along the way. Again, if that does come through, now I have the ability to have those notifications, find out what job or purchase order they're going against, and act accordingly to those changes. And I think, again, one other important touch point here with the SyteLine environment is really kind of getting back into the CAD environment itself, or I should really say the PLM environment itself. And again, that's going to be able to, what I did earlier, I'll be able to take a look at some of that costing information, being able to take a look at, inventory levels, where is this information residing at, what warehouse. All those things are going to be possible for that communication between the two systems itself. So again, really 3 or 4 major touch points there, giving any business a completely integrated solution, either becoming from CAD to PLM and then PLM into the SyteLine environment. Another important note on that is those relationships that, it is up to Infor to maintain those relationships for you. So if you upgrade to the latest CAD revision, or you're using multiple CAD revisions in your environment, if you're using, let's say, 2019 or 2009 of a product, and let's say 2011 of a product, our PLM is going to allow you to do that. Again, we own those CAD integrations, so we make sure when that newest release of CAD comes to market that our PLM solution's already integrated to it, so when you decide to go live with it, you can guarantee your PLM's working. And again, on the same terms, even with the SyteLine, as you go through your upgrade cycles with your SyteLine environment, again, no third parties involved, no custom code written. It's just integrated solution that isn't going to break for you as we're doing those upgrades. So that becomes very important, not just for the IT maintenance portion of it, but also if you are using some type of third party out there, some type of PDM provided by a CAD vendor, we're also taking away all that extra maintenance that would be needed with those other solutions. So as I'm nearing the end here, I just want to quickly kind of go over, a little bit of what we covered here at a high level. I basically took you through a very simple process, bring you up and hopefully introducing you to, the user interface of PLM itself. Again, being very user-friendly, being able to personalize the environment. How much information do I want displayed, and being able to save that off to our favorites. A quick look at documentation, publishing that information to the system. We can go through and do the revision controls and see the full history of that information living inside of PLM. The CAD integration, really kind of the idea of starting that model, publishing it to PLM, having that item master, that bill of material captured for us inside of the PLM environment, being able to manage it, make changes to it, copy it, and so on. Again, kind of referring back to a lot of that PDM type of functionality that is so greatly needed. And then introducing and automating some of our workflows inside of a company. The nice thing about workflows is that any user that has the rights or permissions can take a snapshot of all the given workflows that's currently going on inside of a company, either filtering them out by user, by group, by type, have they been rejected, approved, and so on. Easy access to all that information, which is great for weekly meetings and reviews and such. And again, that important piece, that SyteLine integration, having those touch points of being able to send that item information over to SyteLine, removing that manual input process of that information, being able to add another touch point of any relevant documents, being the PDF file I showed, the CAD file being there for us. Being able even to get that information back by direction of that cost inventory and so on with that becomes so very important. And again, I think one thing that I don't have listed here is that collaboration tool, that enterprise viewing tool. So any information that's living in our database, our vault, that single source of truth for the company, giving easy access for people to review that information, giving easy access for people to collaborate with that information at the same time. So at this point, what I'd like to do with the time we have left is just open it up for any questions and answers that may have come up as we've gone through the demonstration itself.
Dave, thanks so much. Bobby Rutter here. Wanted to let you know to either press the raise your hand button on the webinar, or feel free to type in your question in the chat pane and I'll read that. Looks like we have a question incoming from Bob Cheek. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, we had a question regarding to whether the PLM can recognize, what do you call it, a feature tree within a solid model. we're thinking about using that to build a tool list.
Sure, so absolutely. So if you think about your CAD environment, and even what I showed in that case is the idea that you have your feature tree living in your CAD application, and when I published that information to PLM, it captured that identical feature tree for us inside of PLM, really generating that item master. Now, again, you do have the ability then to choose your item naming schemes that you would like added to those to represent that information inside of SyteLine.
So the item naming schema would then associate back to could associate to your tool item.
Exactly, yep. And another important thing on that topic is, with the CAD solutions that are out there, of course there's the ideas that you may be using iParts or family tables, and we can capture all those design variants too. So PLM is not taking away from any of the functionality you have in your CAD systems today. Of course, we're just adding the tracking of that information, the history of that information, and the true revision control of that information for you.